Hi, everyone. Welcome to this month's edition of LEAP, Leading for Experience, Agility, and Performance, Cornerstone's monthly micro-learning series focused on Agile leadership. This month, we are going to be focusing on a topic that I am sure is close to everybody's workload and mind, which is how to set goals for your workforce. The question that I'd like us to reflect on as we think about this topic is how do we set up goals for our people that move the needle and impact performance and morale and engagement rather than it becoming a compliance exercise? And in order for us to do that, let's look at what are some of the challenges with traditional goal setting. So you've got things like rigid annual cycles that don't match today's fast-changing environment. Goals are set in January or February, and then they're not revisited until the end of the year. Disengagement due to lack of alignment between individual goals, team goals, and organizational goals. And then lastly, goals are often set once and forgotten. Which is a surefire way of getting employees to forget about them. Because if we as leaders don't revisit them, then how do we know that our employees are still thinking about them front of mind? So what I'd like us to look at is some key principles of Agile goal setting. And what we have here is some less agile ways of setting goals, as well as more agile ways of looking at it. So the first criteria is from fixed to flexible. So in the old way of doing things, annual goals are set in January. They are revisited once a year, typically towards the end of the year. In a more agile way, it's more dynamic. There are shorter cycle goals that are reviewed quarterly or even monthly. When I worked for a very large global financial services company in a previous life, we had objectives and key results, OKRs, and we revisited them with my leadership team and my own team on a quarterly basis. We had regular check-ins to adjust those priorities because sometimes the goals are no longer relevant. Looking at the second line, aligning goals with business impact. So in the old way of setting goals, goals are focused on individual outputs, often disconnected from business needs and business outcomes. In a more agile way of doing things, I mentioned OKRs before, a lot of companies are moving to objectives and key results, or more agile sprints to tie goals to bigger company priorities. So an example of this is instead of telling your team you need to increase sales by 10%, a more agile goal that's a bit more specific could be testing and launching 3 new customer engagement tactics in Q1. So you're getting a little more granular. Continuous feedback. Goals are reviewed at year end or twice a year with limited feedback loops. That's in the old world. In the new agile way of leading and setting goals, there should be ongoing coaching conversations that help employees know where they're at and know how to course correct along the way. So a lot of leaders use check-ins and poll surveys to adjust team goals in real time. Empowering teams to own goals. So in the old way of doing things, in a command and control style of leadership, goals are dictated top down with very little autonomy for the team. If you're looking to do this in a more agile way, as a leader, you could set a vision for what success looks like. You could set a vision for what outcomes you want to see, but not outputs, not the how. Maybe you could lean on your team to co-create goals, and that way they could focus more on the how to get to the outcomes, which creates a bit more accountability and engagement. And then measuring success differently is the final criteria to mention. where in the old way of looking at goals, success has been measured in a very binary way. You met the goal or you didn't meet the goal. What I encourage us to think about is to really embrace the gray area, and in an agile, failing fast, failing forward way of doing things, goals should be seen as evolving with learning and adaptability as success indicators. What did we learn? Did we adapt? Were we nimble? Um, and I think that's really important if you want to be iterative, nimble, and agile. Now, in order for this to take fold, we need to let go of some mental models. And I would say that one mental model to let go of is having control of your team and control of how they do things, and moving to having more trust and ensuring that they have the know-how and the context of what outcomes you want to achieve, but they have the capability to think about the how they're going to get there. Also, letting go of perfection. It's okay if your goals are not fully fleshed out and rigid from the get-go. Businesses change, priorities change. Therefore, goals should also be able to change. So it's really letting go of that perfection, and also letting go of the need for goals to be measured in a black and white way, as I mentioned before. Embracing the gray area and also celebrating the wins from the learning. Sometimes failing equates to a better way of doing things the next time. So there you have it, my friends. Being a more agile leader really means rethinking about how you set goals, how you communicate them, and how you empower your teams to be autonomous and really create their own operating system for how to get there. You might be thinking, yeah, but I have a big agenda and I have stuff that needs to get done. That's not going to go away. But what we are recommending is sharing what success looks like, sharing what the end goals are, sharing what the business priorities are, but then giving your team runway to figure out how to get there. I wish you a great rest of the month, and we'll see you next month. Take care.